Hello, and welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk with immigration attorney Brian D. Lerner. In this particular episode, we have yet another U.S. District Court which has ruled against Trump's attempt to bypass asylum law and to fast track immigrants outside of the United States. So let me just briefly give you a recap and then let you know about how the separation of powers is still working, thankfully. Um, so what Trump did is he basically, for all intents purposes, tried to make new rules to essentially state that people coming into the U.S. under certain conditions, without the right to a judge, to an appeal, to present their case in any way, can basically just be picked up and thrown out of the country. That's the bottom line of what Trump tried to do. So, of course, the lawsuits were immediately filed. A U.S. District Court judge enjoined, meaning stopped the new proposed regulations from going into effect, and now due process still exists for those people who want to apply for asylum. So it seems that Trump tries over and over and over again in different ways to rip away due process from people applying for asylum. He tries to denigrate the process by ignoring the laws and so forth. And time after time, lawsuits are brought. The judges enjoin or stop him from moving forward, and then he'll try again in the future. But the good part is that even though there's a president of the United States that wants to ignore the law and to erase due process and to make it so that people cannot do what the law says they can do, the courts do issue rulings, not all of them, but enough that the due process is saved, that the regulations violating the due process and the law don't go into effect, and that the procedures still go forward. Now, if you happen to be walking down the street and immigration picks you up and essentially says they're going to deport you without any right to see an immigration judge or without any time to argue your case, where basically the ICE official is judge, jury, and executioner, which of course that by itself is a violation of due process. um, you need to contact an immigration attorney who knows how to file a stay motion in district court insofar as immigration is violating your due process, among other things, and to issue a stay of deportation. Now, if this is done properly, it can be done very quickly. There are even judges that are essentially on call, and if ICE wants to play games and pick you up at 1 in the morning, thinking that they're going to deport you by 5 in the morning, while that may very well be the case, if you contact any immigration attorney who really knows about federal court proceedings, we can get an emergency stay filed with the court even at that crazy hour of the night, and that is meant to avoid situations where one party tries to do exactly what ICE is trying to do, to basically deport someone under the wire, okay, under the rug. So there are ways. Do not sign anything. The only thing ICE wants you to sign is a document saying, yes, please deport me. I understand everything they said and I am not fighting it. So don't sign it. You can be nice about it. Say, oh, sorry, my attorney told me I'm not supposed to sign anything. And then get somebody to call the immigration attorney right away. Now, there's all kinds of implicit authorizations that Trump seems to be giving in order to skirt the law on asylum. So, for example, another thing that occurred is the interim director of USCIS, essentially said now that the asylum officers, when they do the interview, the initial interview to determine if someone has credible fear, they need to determine right then and there if and when they tried to relocate in a third part or another part of the country that they may have traveled through to get to the United States. Well, first of all, that's not a requirement. Internal relocation would apply to their own country, not to a country they're traveling through to get to the United States. And in order to apply for asylum, there is zero requirement that they try obtaining residency in a third country. There is, in fact, law stating that if they do obtain residency in a third country, they won't qualify for asylum. But that's an entirely different thing than trying to fish and find if they have tried to do an internal or a relocation in a third country prior to coming to the U.S. So it's this type of, um, you know, complete bypassing of what is required that is necessitating lawsuit after lawsuit. But that's the way it has to be. If the officials who work under Trump think that they can just magically create new requirements for asylum, making it more difficult and not under what is the current law, the lawsuits will come. The judges will just enjoin their attempts, and then we'll go forward. That's what has to be done. That is separation of power. That is where one branch of government doesn't try to, and that's the executive branch in this case, and has been in this case, where the executive branch tries to make it so that um, the ability to deny asylum is easier for them. And the courts step in once the lawsuits are brought and they say, no, you can't do that, and basically puts them back on the track of where it is legal and where they are not trying to bypass the rules and regulations to accomplish some policy objective. Okay, so if you like the video, click like, subscribe, and more on the coming weeks. Thank you.